Previously on our adventures in the world of The Witcher, the group had arrived at the lodge Highwatch, where they were introduced to the sorceresses Katrine, Clarice, and Louise Van Adelaide. After the welcomes and settling in, Opheia then read some cheese to see if telling about the cosmic scars was a good idea, and the group met with the sorceresses for dinner to discuss business. So we'll go ahead and drop back into
numbers.
Highwatch Lodge.
Business.
All right, everyone is settled in, and
almost everyone.
Nearly everyone.
Kaspar's listening from afar. He's doing the cat thing where they just stand in the room, but not anywhere near you.
Kaspar does not settle in. He slinks, slunks, or whatever the Grinch song says.
So you settle in for a fairly nice dinner around the table here, discussing the state of the world and things, and, you know, the best diners in Tanserville, whatever else you guys want to discuss with these three.
I just catch up with them. I have not seen them in a couple decades. Probably like the earliest was maybe if any of them were at Sodden or around Sodden when all that shit was going down. That's probably the last I saw them.
Yeah, probably even before that. Probably around, maybe around that time. Yeah, would be.
Yeah, like right before, maybe like the last like annual meeting at Thaned, like before Sodden. Yeah, just catching up with them, seeing what's new with them. I don't any exciting fields of study they're reaching into.
Katrine leans in and says, "Yes, well, it's actually just very nice to catch up and get to know who you've turned into, Mareigh, and to meet your friends. And I've heard, and as was the case when we knew each other earlier, but your renown as a alchemist is widespread, and Clarice here is a bit of an alchemist as well. That's one of the reasons we recruited her first, was so that she'd be able to aid us with some of the more unusual things that we might need out here in such a remote location."
Interesting. If you're up for it, Clarice, I'd love to compare notes and techniques.
You see, Clarice is a little shy, a little less, outgoing than the others. Doesn't necessarily make eye contact as much when she's talking, and is a little bit, soft-spoken. And she says, "Yes, Mareigh, it would be lovely. I have a laboratory that I've set up downstairs in the basement, and I've been working on a new spell, I guess, that I think you might be quite interested in."
Absolutely. Anything you'd be willing to share with me, I'd be happy to learn from. Also, it's been ages since I've seen a proper laboratory. It's nice.
Yes, it's not much, but it's
better than what I've been working with. It's wild out here up in the north.
I'm sure you're able to craft quite amazing things, even with whatever you have available to you, Mareigh.
Thank you for the praise, my dear. It means a lot coming from you.
Katrine kind of pours herself another glass of the conjured wine that she has, and she turns to the rest of you and she says, yes, it's excellent to have you all here and to be welcomed into our new lodge. Obviously, this is just sort of the starting grounds, and with our opening event that we're hosting, that we're hoping to gain interest and funds to expand, perhaps get a more suitable location. But as I mentioned when we sat down for dinner, there's a bit of a complication. The celestial goings on that have been causing these magical mutations, it's got the locals on edge, and word has spread that we have arrived. And well, as I mentioned, there is a town not too far removed from here that there's been some disappearances, and well, as the locals are wont to do, they have come to the conclusion that of course we must be in some way involved.
Are you?
She kind of leans back in her chair and looks across the room, and she just kind of gives you a cold look and then like turns back to the rest of the group. As I was saying, it would be quite helpful if you might visit this place and speak with the locals, see if you can figure out this situation, resolve it to the best of your abilities, and hopefully find some solution that is ideal for all parties involved. We have our event next week, and it would be a bad look for the other mages and sorceresses that will be here if they hear about any goings-on in the area that are unfavorable.
I would also think they'd be quite off-put by the sheer quantity of bodies being hanged from the gallows in Tanserville at the current moment. It was quite a shock seeing that roll in. Felt like I was back in Mareigh.
Indeed. Quite a few of our colleagues that will be visiting are from Temeria, Redania, those areas that have been hit hard, and it is not an unusual sight to them, although indeed it is an unfortunate timing that this is occurring now. But
we're trying to avoid a mob. Pitchforks, torches, all that. Any leads on what the cause of this disappearance is? Is there any correlation between the victims being taken that you've noticed?
All I have heard is that there's been a number of children, teenagers that have disappeared from the nearby village. It sounds as though they are up in arms. I'm not sure more. You'll have to speak to the locals about that. For all I know, perhaps they've just run off and feel like they can find a better life than working in some dirty field or picking potatoes or whatever it is they do.
The runaways are not uncommon amongst the common folk, but not at the end of winter. Not when it's not safe to travel long distances. So if these disappearances have been happening in the previous weeks prior to the thaw, runaways is not likely.
It seems unusual, at least from my understanding and the places I have been. It seems as though they've been disappearing at a higher than normal rate. If we were somewhere like Temeria, I wouldn't be surprised, but up here, it's not as common for young people to go missing as regularly as they have from these small villages.
You haven't noticed anything else?
We have been a little preoccupied. Again, she kind of leans back in her chair, kind of giving you like a side eye.
give Kaspar I give Kaspar a very pleading look over her head, like, please.
I would have assumed that mages with their boundless curiosity would know a little bit more about the town that they are staying directly outside of.
Now, this town is bit further up into the valley. We spend most of our time that we are outside of the lodge in Tanserville, where we can actually get the resources and materials that we need. We have not had a need to stray into these smaller foothill towns. As far as we know, there's been 2 teenagers that have disappeared in the last few days from the most nearby village, and they are up in arms, you might say, trying to discern the location of these 2. And naturally, their attentions have fallen upon the easiest target, which at this moment is us.
We don't have any qualms talking to the locals.
No, I do.
The rest of us don't have any qualms talking to the locals, doing some research.
You know if there's a particular sway between boys and girls that have been taken?
I can't say for sure.
Something to ask.
One of the messengers that had passed through the area had mentioned that these 2 had just recently gone missing, but did not specify.
When was the first one that you heard of? Wondering if it has to align with the current celestial chaos that's happening. Just making odd comments make people do odd shit.
Indeed. It's not unusual for people to come out of the woodwork or for things to begin developing strangely when the world around them is strange. I would not be surprised if they might be connected in some way, even if just by the fact that strange goings-on tend to lead to additional oddities. I'm not sure when the first teenager or child disappeared, but they have been escalating in the disappearances, with the last 2 having been in the last few days.
If you're so concerned about this, why didn't you do any more research? Follow up any leads? If it troubles you so much.
This time, she does not actually even look or acknowledge you, Kaspar. She actually just turns to Mareigh and she says, "Darling, you understand. We're in preparations to be hosting quite an important event for us. We haven't really had as much time to go gallivanting around the countryside lately."
God forbid somebody interrupts your precious little party preparations. Send out your old friend to get lynched instead.
Kaspar, I know you don't have a whole lot of respect for what we do, but there is a method to what we do and why we do it. So I would ask for, at least on behalf of people that I've known for a very long time, a modicum of respect. Tone down the derision just a tad. Just a tad.
I don't much appreciate for people who play games when people's lives are at risk.
So you tried the cheese? That's good.
We'll look into it. At least I will look into it. I'm much more salt of the earth than you girls, and my appearance lets me blend in a little bit easier, I feel. I won't be as suspicious. I can be subtle when I want to be.
Yes, the most nearby village that these 2 disappeared from is called
refraining from making a rude
Riverbend.
gesture. Riverbend.
This is Louise that speaks up. She says, I appreciate it, Mareigh. We would look into it if we had the time or more people, but there is so much to do and so little time that we are spread thin as it is.
And I can't imagine being outsiders endears much to getting any actual information, especially outsiders that have the airs that you do. The mountain folk don't trust easily, but you can learn things from them if you know the questions to ask and the right things to say.
My understanding, and from what I have heard from our sources in the areas, the villages here, and they tend to be, welcoming to those who treat them with respect, but they can be hard to people that perhaps they do not know or that do not share their values.
A common sentiment across the northern lands, especially in these times of contempt. We'll look into it, though. If it's anything out of our depth, out of what I assess to be out of our depth, I will report back.
This is Louise. She speaks up again. She says, I don't want you to think I am asking you, or that we are asking you to do this for nothing. We'd be happy to compensate you. And
you insult me thinking that I would do it for free.
I of course, I did not want you to think that we want you to feel like you are well compensated. We're happy to aid you and compensate you in nearly whatever way you see fit. This is great importance to us.
That's a price point I like to hear. We do need your help. So the offer is appreciated, and I'm looking forward to working together on this.
Indeed, and of course, you are all most welcome to attend our opening event, and that will be quite the who's who of people perhaps you have not seen in a long time, and an opportunity for you to even network with some new folks perhaps as well.
New blood. It's hard enough keeping the old blood straight. Do you have a solid RSVP list?
We do have quite a few who are planning to attend. Yes.
Any from Francesca's group? A lot.
Mareigh, go ahead and give me a persuasion check.
Persuasion. I put 2 luck into this. Please, yes.
Nice. She turns to you and looks, and she says,
I don't give a shit about the war, for what it's worth. So.
The war has changed many things. There will be an unusual mix of magic users. Some that may not have seen eye to eye in years past, but, well, as the bodies hanging in Tanserville and those burning across Redania would suggest, there is a need for a new path forward.
And the people attending are the ones who can see the need for that path.
They have a vision for the future.
Ones that you would like to convince of the path. Interesting. She's not going to give me any names, is she?
You get the. She basically says yes, that there will be old school mages as well as maybe
youngers,
and also a mixing and matching potentially from Banard, as well as just an unusual. It's not kind of the closed door, like
Council.
ideals of Thanid. Kind of. This is more of an open invite to people who might have a view for a future.
There was a bit of a schism after Thanid because some people did some treason, and some people were okay with that, and some people weren't. Some people said it's not that big of a deal. Some people said no, it's a huge deal. So I was just trying to see if someone that I knew was coming, but that's okay. I'll figure it out when we go to this party. If we're going to this party, I would like to go to this party.
Gotta get a fancy outfit.
Fancier outfit.
You need fancier, I need fancy.
So in regards to the comet that passed through a while back, what's your take on it, as not as gossips but as scholars?
At this point, Clarice kind of perks up a little bit again, and she goes, "Yes, I have been studying it a bit, and it's not something I was very familiar with before, but I have looked into it a bit, and well, it's quite interesting. Are you familiar with the prophecy of Galaris?"
Quite familiar.
Excellent. It's unusual, really, that any prophecy has even a grain of truth to it. And yet, the fact that this seems to have transpired almost exactly as he described it in his writings, very unusual. It's something that in days gone by I would have diverted quite a good amount of resources to study if I was still a court mage and we had such things. But out here on my own, it's a little hard to find more than topical information on it. But
Passing myth, local legend, yes.
The most I've been able to discern, and from the research and the hearsay in town, it seems as though that the elements of his prophecy that mentioned this arrival of this comet and these changes in people have been true. We've seen it. Farmhands and just local villagers that have suddenly had magical abilities with no history. It's quite unusual, and so a bit concerning as well. We've also noticed that there's been a greater than normal discovery of I'm not sure. We've just heard descriptions, but some sort of shadow creatures or monsters that have been seen in Tanserville and other cities in the area. I'm not sure where these entities have come from, but they seem linked to these individuals that have been changed.
Excellent. That corroborates some evidence that we've collected.
Oh, you have?
I look at Opheia. We've encountered one of the shadow creatures before.
Indeed. First hand, you say?
Firsthand, quite firsthand. Was attempting to exorcise the person that was possessed by the creature.
You don't need to say attempt. I don't want to give the impression I'm still possessed. But
Yes, it was Opheia. It presented itself as a curse of the nighttime, which was, honestly, looking back on it, quite a clever disguise for a creature of that type. But
Interesting.
it did come at a great personal loss to us.
Well, it is interesting that you have experienced this firsthand, Opheia. The fact that you're still here and able to tell the story is all the more impressive. It seems as though these entities have sort of incubated in the those who have been, I suppose, claimed by them. It doesn't seem to be everyone. I've been able to examine a few myself, and it seems as though it's only a small percentage that have these entities that have latched on to their consciousness, but they do seem to essentially drive them insane eventually, and the end results have been quite disturbing. That is one of the reasons that there have been so many hangings, is that the erratic behavior of the patients, once they have become, well, possessed of this demon, it's been troubling for the locals to understand.
That is very troubling. They can be exorcised, though. It does take some doing, but treating it like a curse of the nighttime does compel the demon to leave the host. But then you have to deal with the demon outside. And fight
Indeed,
it.
and there are, well, that has also been a challenge. We have heard rumors of them getting loose and having been exorcised by priests and others in town, and not being able to handle the aftermath. It has seemed devastating.
What have you heard of the interactions with monsters? If anything.
In what way?
On our journeys we paid a visit to the coast for a bit of knowledge from some old friends of one of us. And on our way in, we encountered a troll that bore the markings. And it had gone completely deranged. It was only a few short days after the comet's arrival.
Interesting. I have not heard of monsters or trolls being afflicted by this. That changes things. That's interesting.
It appeared as though its mind had been eroded by chaos.
Didn't even want candy and wine.
Trolls can be reasoned with to an extent, but this one could not be. It had no mind left, and it acted like those that we've seen who fall victim to the effects of chaos.
Indeed, what you describe, it sounds as though it matches with the behavior that we see in humans when the madness takes hold. It's interesting. It would track that a creature such as a troll with its limited cognition would be afflicted sooner, perhaps, by this. But it's unusual. I'd never considered that perhaps Galaris's prophecy would extend beyond. Would be interesting. I wonder. I will do some more research. But if my inclination is correct, that could lead to a number of possibilities. There's something I recall from one of my history lessons many years ago. I will have to do some research and get back to you on that, but I have an idea.
I'm interested to see where it leads. Have you encountered or heard from any other of our kind that have had the mark?
You see a sort of little bit of a side eye between. Are your eyes? You can Clarice this specifically.
Yes.
Yeah. You see. Actually, go ahead and give me a human perception check, Mareigh, and I'll say everyone at the table can do this. Kaspar, you can do it if you want, but at like a -5 because you're far away.
Human perception.
Bro, I'm working with like a 4.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, but ooh,
I
Opheia,
mean,
wow.
I just think that Kaspar is not paying attention at this point.
All right.
He's disassociating in the corner.
So
That's him in the corner.
I'm actually going to give
He's just
her
like me for real.
just to see if she. I don't think she's going to beat any of those, but yeah. So you all notice, and Opheia specifically, Opheia very clearly, that her eyes kind of shift over towards Luis a little bit. Mareigh and Kilton, you sort of notice it, but aren't necessarily sure what kind of the intention behind the look is. Opheia, you realize that she looks like directly like at Luis, and then her eyes kind of shift down towards Luis's forearm, which is currently covered by that, kind of silk gown. And the look kind of like Luis looks back with kind of a cold, like, knock it off kind of stare.
At Clarice or at me?
At Clarice, yeah.
Okay.
There's a quick look between the two of them. Kilton and Mareigh don't notice a look back, but Opheia with the 34 does notice the kind of exchange.
Okay. They have no fucking idea. They have just as little clue about this as we do.
We have more,
We have more.
but we don't know that.
Yeah, you know how to do a spell, maybe?
Sorry, what's that, Opheia?
Oh, nothing. I was just, yeah. No, we have like one up on them, but only one.
Yeah, we're sitting at about equal knowledge here, so. But they got resources, and we're going to be meeting with people who have even more. So they know people. I want to know the people that they know and talk to people that they talk to. Someone's got to have answers about this shit. All right.
I will clarify, Opheia, that with your 34, the look, the exchange that Clarice and Louise had was a very knowing look of specifically looking at Louise when Mareigh asked if they knew anyone that was afflicted by the comet.
Yes.
You're the one who got the results of the tyromancy, so if you want to lay the cards on the table, I'm going to put that in your court. If you can reveal, choose not to reveal. Whatever you want to do.
Well, I suppose it would be worth noting that in addition to being the subject of possession, I'm also the subject of a celestial marking, and I'll raise my arm up. Well, I've yet to be singled out for it, hence why I'm alive, but if you had any questions for me...
Clarice turns and examines your forearm in a little bit more detail, just kind of gently looking at it and kind of examining the marking. She says, "That is fascinating." She turns back to Louise and she says, "Louise, we should tell them. We can trust them." And Louise will kind of take a slightly overzealous sip of her rosé or whatever she has, and she will say, "Very well, Clarice, I shall." You see, she pulls up the sleeve of her nightgown and reveals that she is additionally marked by the cosmic marking. She says, "This appeared on the night of the comet. I awoke in the dead of the night and I felt like my arm was on fire. I had an unusual and unsettling dream, and I set out immediately to research what this was, and we found the information on the prophecy, which Katrine remembered from the days at school, and well, we have only been able to uncover bits and pieces, but we are hoping that we might learn more at the event. That is another reason we are eager to ensure that we are able to host, as there will be many researchers who have much more knowledge than we do that will be in attendance if they are confident that our lodge is what we say it is.
I appreciate the show of good faith. We're in accord, and I'll pull up my wrist and show mine. Samesies.
Indeed.
Thank you for trusting me with this. It's frightening. I can imagine how terrified you were. What did you... I can ask if you're willing to share. What did you dream about?
I wrote it down in my journal the next morning, so I would not forget. The dream started in some dark place, a crypt of some kind, it seemed like, and there was an entity, a force, a figure. It seemed...
large, terrible?
Indeed. It seemed almost inhuman in its form, but it manifested in a human-ish shape, and then it reached towards me. That is when I felt the burning on my arm, and then it swirled away into a world of smoke and ash, and that is when I awoke in the morning.
You didn't have any further visions after the creature left?
I did not. Mareigh, go ahead and give me a human perception check, yeah.
There's more to that dream. I'm going to put a luck into this. Please, 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 please. Ugh, okay.
Ooh. It's hard to tell. She might be telling the truth. She might not be.
Okay.
You don't get the impression, like, she doesn't look like she's distinctly lying. So it is quite hard to read if she is telling the full truth or not.
I experienced the same creature in my dream, but I was able to parse what was happening around me. It was an ancient binding ritual that I had stepped into, that I had been called into. Whatever that creature was, called each of these individual creatures, each of us individuals, to be marked. As one would summon, as a mage would summon a spirit or a demon. Those who had the dream were summoned into it. Old Elven. That's all I could get from it.
That is fascinating. I was not able to discern that information. That is very valuable. Thank you for relaying that. That will help guide our research and might help us discern more.
Were you here when the comet was passing? Were you all
Yes.
here when the comet was passing?
Yes, we had moved in perhaps a month and a half prior, maybe 2 months. We've been here a little while, since the beginning of winter, I suppose.
Explains why the bathroom's not done.
No one wants to do DIY in the winter.
Yes, I do apologize about that. There wasn't really a need, so, we have one
Fine.
upstairs, so. It will be done by the party, though. We have someone coming tomorrow. That's another reason we need you to go out there. We got to be here for him. We need to make sure.
gotta wait for the contractor to show up.
Does your contractor have one of these? And I pull up my sleeve and show the mark.
You are additionally marked. No, he is just some local guy who is supposedly good at building bathrooms, but we want to make sure that we have facilities for,
I'm just an independently wealthy socialite who now has a little bit of magic.
Give him a look. Okay.
True. I am independently wealthy.
It is true. It's an odd thing to bring up in conversation, but I know that you don't do things without reason.
You really got to add philanthropist to your resume. Makes people bat, the eyes a little less.
I don't want these people to think I'm good at giving away money.
Well then, Mr. Kilton, I think that you shall fit right in with many of our more socialite visitors that will be in attendance. I think you will likely enjoy yourself quite a bit.
That's exciting.
Well, we will look into these disappearances, and I think together we can all pool knowledge and research and methodology to try to get to the bottom of this scarily accurate Armageddon prophecy.
Indeed, I look forward to us working together, just like old times.
Just like old times.